So many games are about counting or taking stock of what we have. And it wasn't until 2012 that the true meaning of these terms really etched themselves into my heart. I was living in northern Thailand at the time and was on an adventure with 3 friends. We were driving through the jungles, playing games, and it ended in Burma. We had crossed the border and we were about 10 or 15 miles away in this big dirt clearing. And after a really amazing day, my English friend turns to us and he's like, "Oh, how about we end with a game of hide and seek and we can say we did it in Burma?" And so we're like, "Yeah, that sounds amazing." So he's like, "I'll turn and I'll start counting." So he starts counting 10. The first thing I see is that there's an amazing patch of tall grass, absolutely towering, maybe 9 or 10 feet. I start bounding for it. 9, I'm just moving my limbs, trying to remember my high school track days. 8, I'm cutting through the grass, just remembering to breathe and move my limbs. 7, I'm like move, pull, breathe. And then I look back and I realize that 7 was actually the last number that I heard. And around me was just tall grass and pretty much nothing else. And before I had time to call out anyone's name, a deafening sound rung out through the air. Shivers went up my spine. Another one. And the first thing I thought was, Lord help me. And all I can think about was running. So I just kept running and running until I was out of the grass and I was in a new clearing. Except this time, there were several guard towers in front of me and contingents of soldiers. And I started counting them. 1. And as I looked, there were soldiers at the top, each with rifles with massive scopes on them, all pointed at me. 3, 7. Eventually, I lost count, and I just heard them yell, "Hands, hands!" And I put my hands up. And I'm looking at a sniper who's standing underneath his guard tower right across from me. And he kind of gives me this up and down look, and he runs in the middle of the dirt and starts waving his arms wildly, yelling in Burmese. Then he points at me and he's like, "Oh, Obama, Obama, come over here. America, America, come here, come here." So he calls me over and he's like, don't worry, come here. And so I'm walking and he's like, follow me. So he starts just climbing up his guard tower. He's like, come on. So I'm climbing, terrified and confused. We get to the top and there's barely enough room for 2 people. And he's like, "Oh, America, I like America." It's like, "This is Burma." I was like, "Yeah, I gathered, thank you." And he's like, my name is B. I was like, "Oh, I'm Brenton." He's like, "Oh, what are you doing here?" I was like, "Well, we were playing a game and then I heard gunshots and now I'm here." And he was like, "Oh, well, games are good." And so B starts rummaging through some of his stuff and he pulls out this picture and he hands it to me and there's a little girl in the photo. And he says, "Tiriyang." And I was like, "What?" He's like, "Tiriyang, my daughter, Tiriyang." And I was like, "Oh, she's really cute. She's a very adorable young girl." And B kind of shakes his head. And after a few seconds of silence, some tears start rolling down his face. And he says, 2 years ago, I was playing up in the village with Tiriyang, and I was in the tree carving a toy for her. She was in the creek splashing with all the women. And he's like, I saw something in distance I would never forget. He was like, soldiers everywhere, Thai soldiers. And he's like, I started yelling, "Tiriyang, Tiriyang!" She didn't hear me. He's like, I started climbing down the tree, climbing down. And he's like, when my foot hit ground, all I heard was, and he's like, the next morning, I woke up in the hospital. And I was the only one who survived. And he's like, all I remember was the screams. And now I'm a soldier. And I said, B, I'm so sorry. And he's like, no, it's okay. He's like, Thai people, good people. Greed is bad. War is bad. And these things make good people do evil. He pointed at his gun, and he said, I only fire that gun when I absolutely have to. Because now every time I hear gunshot, a part of me dies. And then he looked at me and he was like, Obama, you must always remember to play and to smile, because every time I smile, every time I play, I know Tiriyang is looking down, smiling with me. And then B and I sat in silence for about 10 minutes. And then eventually we climbed down the guard tower. He pointed my way back to where I'd come and explained how to get back to my friends. And he gave me a big bear hug. And then he grabbed my head and he put his forehead against my forehead. And he gave me this big smile and started patting my heart. And he said, thank you. Thank you for helping me remember how to smile. And as I turned away, I was so grateful because B had taught me 2 things. He reminded me of counting, but in this case of counting my own blessings. And he taught me of taking stock of our own humanity.